you know, at Garden Time segments, we love talking about plants, 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 but then how do you put it all together to make it interesting and beautiful in your landscape? I'm with Rick Naylor from Visualscaping and French Prairie Perennials. And so Rick, you are a master at doing this. And so you're going to give us some tips that we can take home and make beautiful gardens and landscapes.
Right. Well, the first thing that you need to remember when you're particularly if you're doing a smaller yard, is to try to make every plant count. Okay, and the way that we can do that is by using color and texture together and by staggering our plants, particularly if you have like most people do, a square backyard. If you can take your plants and stagger them instead of putting them in a straight line, then you can get the plants to play off of each other, which is really important because then every plant will count because they're working together.
And so let's first talk about texture, because you mentioned texture, and so you have this little vignette here. So what's going on with these three plants?
Now we've got 3 different colors, which is nice, but the problem is, as you can see, they're all the same texture. So you kind of lose some of that pop because they blend together more because of the texture. So using different colors is great, but really concentrate on using some different textures too, because that gives you more of that pop that you need.
Okay, so let's go down to this landscape, which is filled with color, texture, all kinds of different things. So kind of explain what you plant here.
Well, what I did here is, again, I'm using the different textures. We have all different textures and all different colors. So no matter what angle you look at, one plant is playing off the other plant. For example, we have the icebreaker here, which is playing off the piccola, which is playing off of the dahlia. Okay. So we've got 3 different things. So if we looked at it from different angles, we're getting a different look because they're playing off of a different plant and a different texture. So
and different than if, like you talked about, in a line. It's a totally different look, not as interesting.
Right, because if you look at that from front or behind, all you're seeing, you're focusing, because as human beings, our eyes will always focus on color. So we'll focus on the brightest color and not the other plants that are with it.
Right, right.
So we want them to play off of each other. That's why we want to stagger them. The other thing it does is it adds depth to the bed.
Sure.
So if you have a straight fence with a straight line, they're all symmetrical.
Right.
You're not getting that depth. If you stagger them, then it makes the bed look bigger than it actually is.
That is true. And then what about, like, we always hear about the bones of the garden and, you know, starting with that possibly, and do you believe in that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The best place to start is your foundation plants. Now, for example, this Acer Shiraswanum Aureum is our foundation plant here. So we have a certain color and a certain texture. So what we want to do is play off of this color. One good color to play off of this is a blue. So we've got the Picea Nimitz next to it, and then the icebreaker.
Pretty.
The great thing and another important thing to do is all my customers know is I'm a huge believer in 12-month color.
Sure.
So the best thing about this is when some of the dormant perennials are gone, we still have the evergreens, so we still have color in the bed. And if you space it right, it still looks full in the middle of January as it does in June. So you start with your foundation plant like the Shiraswanum. Then I went to the Picea Nimitz here, which is a great dwarf blue spruce that's still flushing out some of its color from the spring, but it flushes out this bright buttery yellow new color in the spring and then turns blue for the rest of the year. So it kind of evolves. So then when we get into fall, the Shiraswanum will turn a pumpkin orange, which is playing off the icebreaker and playing off the Nimitz.
Right.
So again, different season, but we still have all the different colors, and that's very, very important. So you start with your foundation plant and then start building down from there. The last thing you're going to do is like this Veronica that's out front. Those would be your last 3 things that you do as you're kind of scaling down and building your garden. So plants are very important. Our foundation plants here, like I said, would be the Shiraswanum, the Picea Nimitz, the icebreaker, and the Societopodes piccola over there. Those would be our foundation plants. The kaleidoscope and the Mahonia also would be our foundation plants. Then the perennials like the dahlias and the veronicas and the astilbe, those would be our seasonal color.
And it's so nice because there's broadleafed evergreens in the abelia and in the mahonia, and then the needled evergreens, and then the deciduous, because you're still going to have that texture of the branches even in wintertime.
Right, absolutely.
So that's going to be really nice. And then even if in the wintertime you could put in pansies or other kind of winter interest annuals, just to kind of get some more color for the wintertime.
Right, and that's exactly why you want to stagger things as much as you can, because then you have room to put your annuals or your seasonal plants. If you put them all in a straight line, you really don't.
Right.
So that's why that's super important to try and remember if you have the space to do it. If you have a really small bed where it's really short and narrow, you can still do it to a certain extent, but use smaller plants and just kind of, do as much staggering as you can, because it makes a huge difference.
Oh, it is. It's, all these tips are so good. And if you come out to French Prairie Perennials, you can do this in their yard here. I mean, there's space. You can recreate what you're going to take home, take pictures. It's so much easier then to bring it home and install it, and you're all done, and your garden looks gorgeous, and it's professionally from Rick Naylor.
Oh, well, we do it all the time. Here in the people will bring us pictures of their space from home, and then we'll give them some ideas of what plant material to use. And then we'll lay it out here in the parking lot, and we'll kind of make changes as we go, because I'm a very visual person also, which is how visual scaping got started in the first place. But so sometimes I have to see things laid out, and sometimes I'll say, yeah, that's not what I thought it was going to be, and we'll make that change into something that's a little bit better. But it works really well because people will take pictures of what we've laid out, take it home, and then we'll space it out exactly the way it was here, and then I have to try to remember it and everything else. So it works out really well. That way.
Well, really, such a fun thing to do, and you get involved in it. It's not just someone doing a drawing. So please come out to French Prairie Perennials, talk to Rick, and really have a beautiful landscape at your house. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Judy. Appreciate it.